if the people you trust the most are hiding the darkest secrets? David thought he had the perfect family, until late-night texts, secret whispers, and a hidden truth shattered his world. One night, he decided to uncover the truth. What he found was beyond his worst nightmares. You won't believe how this story ends. Dear listeners, please subscribe my channel to help achieve goal 1,000 subscribers. David Miller had always prided himself on being a man who could read people. As a police officer with over 20 years on the force, he had spent his career spotting lies, detecting fear, and understanding human behavior. But the one person he never thought he'd have to investigate was his own wife. His home in a quiet Texas suburb was supposed to be his sanctuary. He had built a stable life with Sarah, the woman he had married 6 years ago, and his 17-year-old son Ryan from his first marriage. Their family wasn't perfect, but it worked. At least, that's what he believed. Then, little things started changing. Sarah and Ryan had always gotten along well. At first, David was grateful. What more could a man ask for than a wife who loved his son as her own? But lately, their relationship felt different. It started with their interactions. They would sit too close together on the couch, their heads tilted toward each other, whispering jokes David wasn't part of. When he walked into a room, they would stop talking, abruptly, almost guiltily. Then the physical gestures. A hand lingering on a shoulder for just a little too long. A casual touch that didn't feel so casual. At first, David ignored it, brushing off his suspicions as paranoia. But his instincts, the same instincts that had saved his life on the job more times than he could count, told him something was wrong. The late-night phone calls were the first real red flag. One night, after a long shift, David lay in bed beside Sarah, exhausted but unable to sleep. That's when he heard a faint buzzing sound, Sarah's phone lighting up on the nightstand. He turned his head and caught a glimpse of the screen. Ryan, 1:04 a.m. "Are you still awake?" David frowned. Why would Ryan be texting Sarah in the middle of the night? Sarah, still awake, picked up her phone without hesitation. She typed quickly, her face illuminated by the blue glow of the screen. David could feel his pulse quicken. "Everything okay?" he asked, his voice calm but firm. Sarah jumped slightly, then forced a smile. "Yeah, just Ryan asking about something for school." David nodded but didn't respond. He knew she was lying. Something was happening under his own roof, something he didn't want to believe. And this was only the beginning. Before Sarah, before the betrayal, there was Lisa. David's first wife, Lisa Carter Miller, had been the love of his life. They met in their early 20s. She was studying to become a nurse, and he was a rookie cop just trying to make his way in the world. Their love was effortless, the kind of bond that made people believe in soulmates. When Ryan was born, their family felt complete. But life doesn't always follow the script we write for it. Lisa's battle with cancer was swift and merciless. It started with fatigue, then unexplained bruises, and before they knew it, doctors were using words like aggressive and terminal. David did everything in his power: second opinions, experimental treatments, sleepless nights researching cures that didn't exist. But 6 months after the diagnosis, she was gone. David had never felt pain like that before, the kind that settles in your bones, making even the simplest tasks feel impossible. For a long time, he was just surviving, going to work, taking care of Ryan, pretending he was okay when he wasn't. Raising a child alone wasn't easy. Ryan, only 10 at the time, withdrew into himself. He stopped talking about his mother, stopped playing outside, stopped being the bright, happy kid he once was. David, drowning in grief himself, didn't know how to pull him out of it. Then came Sarah. She was Ryan's elementary school teacher, kind, patient, always willing to listen. At first, David only saw her as a helpful presence in Ryan's life. But as time passed, she became something more. She was warm, understanding, and for the first time in years, David felt like he could breathe again. Their relationship moved fast. Too fast, some might say. Within a year, they were married, and Sarah moved in. She stepped into the role of wife and stepmother with ease, bringing a sense of normalcy back into their lives. Ryan, who had spent years in emotional isolation, started opening up again. David truly believed he had been given a second chance at happiness. But now, years later, as he lay awake thinking about the way Sarah had smiled at Ryan over dinner, the way she touched his arm too often, the way they shared secrets he wasn't a part of, he couldn't help but wonder. Had he been too desperate to rebuild his family? Had he ignored the warning signs? Had he invited a storm into his home, mistaking it for shelter? The more he thought about it, the more he realized. His past was tragic, but what was happening now? It was something much darker, and he was about to find out just how deep the betrayal ran. David couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The late-night texts, the stolen glances, the way Sarah and Ryan seemed to have their own unspoken world. It was gnawing at him. As a cop, he had spent years trusting his instincts, and they were screaming at him now. So, he started watching. At first, it was subtle. He paid closer attention during dinner, how Sarah laughed a little too much at Ryan's jokes, how Ryan avoided eye contact when David entered the room. Then, he started noticing the disappearances. Sarah had always been predictable in her routine. Morning yoga, grocery shopping on Sundays, book club on Thursdays. But now, she was out more often. Running errands, she would say, helping a friend. One night, David came home earlier than expected. As he stepped through the front door, he heard the unmistakable sound of hurried movement upstairs. Footsteps. A door shutting too fast. His heart pounded. He walked up the stairs, his police training taking over. The hallway was silent. Sarah's bedroom door was slightly ajar. He pushed it open, expecting, what? He wasn't sure. Sarah sat on the edge of the bed, her phone clutched tightly in her hand. Ryan's hoodie was draped over the chair by her vanity. David's eyes flicked between the two. "Everything okay?" he asked. Sarah smiled too quickly. "Yeah, just texting a friend." She never stuttered, but she was now. David's gaze shifted to the phone in her hands. Sarah had never been secretive about her phone before. She left it lying around, unlocked, but now she was gripping it like it held the world's greatest secret. Ryan's bedroom door was closed. David stood there for a moment, the tension thick between them. He wanted to ask what she was really doing, why Ryan's hoodie was in her room, why she suddenly looked like she had something to hide. But he didn't. Not yet. Instead, he walked out, his mind racing. That night, he made a decision. He was done ignoring the signs. The next time, he wouldn't just ask questions. He would find answers. And he had a plan. David had spent years solving crimes, piecing together evidence, and uncovering the truth behind lies. But now, his own home had become a crime scene, and the suspects were the two people he loved the most. He knew he couldn't confront them without proof. He needed something undeniable, something that would confirm whether his worst fears were real or if he was just being paranoid. So, he did what any cop would do. He started investigating. Sarah's behavior had changed, but so had Ryan's. The teenager who once left his phone lying around the house now carried it everywhere. Even in the bathroom, even while sleeping, it was always with him. One evening, while Ryan was in the shower, David saw an opportunity. The phone was charging on the nightstand. He picked it up, locked. Not unusual, but when David tried Ryan's usual passcode, the one he had used for years, it didn't work. His stomach twisted. Ryan had changed his passcode. Why? David knew about technology. He wasn't a hacker, but he knew enough. If Sarah and Ryan were hiding something, there had to be a way to find it. He installed software on the home Wi-Fi that logged device activity, not just websites visited, but messages sent and received. It wasn't exactly legal, but at this point he didn't care. For days, there was nothing. Then, at 2 a.m., a notification popped up. A message sent from Sarah's phone to Ryan's. "I miss you. Meet me in the guest room." David's hands turned cold. His breath caught in his throat. He stared at the screen, rereading the words, hoping he had misread them. But there it was, clear as day. David didn't hesitate. He moved quietly through the darkened house, his heart pounding in his ears. He reached the guest room door and pressed his ear against it. Whispers, movement, a soft giggle. His fingers curled into a fist, his knuckles white. He pushed the door open. Inside, Sarah and Ryan sat too close. Way too close. The air in the room felt thick, suffocating. They both turned to look at him, their faces draining of color. "David," Sarah stammered, standing up, her voice shaking. "This isn't—" But she didn't get to finish. David wasn't listening. He wasn't seeing his wife and son anymore. He was looking at two strangers. Two people who had betrayed him in the worst possible way. The silence stretched between them, heavy and unbearable. Then, without a word, David turned and walked away. Because some betrayals don't need explanations. Some betrayals speak for themselves. And this was unforgivable.